Hello, everyone, and welcome to your weekly world session with myself and my group that's sitting behind the scenes here. We did a lot of talking about different things. We want to work this June 23rd, 2026 on protecting the brain, protecting the blood vessels in the brain, and working with the grooves in the brain that kind of like pathways that are established because we repeat patterns over and over again, including language, right? We can have a habitual way of responding, and we can't really find a different way of doing that. So I want to get that flexibility operating with some. We'll do some consciousness in here, but we'll also um, work with the neuroplasticity of the brain itself. So some of that will be, using these different programs that will support, let's say, I never thought about this before, but to work with tensegrity within the neurons. So let's say the neuron itself, has its own movement. You've got the axon and the dendrite, and then you've got all of the neurotransmitters that run between them, communicating everything in the brain. You've got different sections of the brain. What we want to focus on is hippocampus for memory storage and also neuropeptide and hormone release so that everything that's going on in the brain has a better. I also want to do a synthesis of peptides, right? So we've got the amino acids that build up the peptide. If we could also improve that. And this is coming out of consciousness, where if my consciousness believes certain things, it's going to impact every single thing going on in the body. I think I was reading something yesterday. I don't know if it was just like, fluff type of medicine or, but I thought I've heard this so often, and it's something, a lot of us intuitives intuited way back in time, is that consciousness is going to influence the food you eat. Is the food that you eat is bad, or is it what you think about the food that's bad? Now, nothing is 100%, as we know, but that can be very, very much part of it, right? We could say sugar is evil, carbohydrates are evil, which a lot of people say all the time, especially keto and carnivores. But there's Dr. Ray Peat, who actually uses sugar. He doesn't see sugar as a terrible thing, and he uses sugar to help people heal from diabetes. That you'd have to go research. It's a big deal to do, and it requires a lot of testing, et cetera, to do it. But he's healed a lot of diabetics. So there's a lot of really cool stuff out there that can vary, that is variable, but we need this neuroplastic mechanism, this brain, to be able to work through all of those things. But let's start with consciousness. And the one we mostly came up with is, if I'm responsible, it doesn't mean that I'm going to have control. It doesn't mean that I am able to actually make a decision. So if you look at, different philosophical teachings, we understand that decisions occur. You can sit for hours and think about the decisions you're going to make, but if you really sit with it and you say, how did that decision get made? You'll notice it just happened, right? It's very spontaneous. That's something you could check for yourself. There's no need to discuss it. And then I went on to this idea about free will, and free will being something that, there's so many huge debates about free will. I don't really necessarily believe we have free will, but people say, yes, but I went for a chicken dinner last night to a restaurant, and I decided to have chicken rather than steak or fish or pasta. It's like, yeah, okay, but not every single thing on the planet was on the menu. And even if every single thing on the planet was on the menu, it may be dependent on what you ate earlier that day or the night before, right? So there are a lot of things that are preconditions to what is going on. It is not complete free will. And that goes into a section that I didn't discuss with in the group that I would have liked to, is also the idea of freedom. And we need to bring that in because I mean, it's lovely to have the freedom of decisions, the freedom of, obviously choice decisions, all of those things. But um, freedom is ultimately a very limited, uh, or something that we would consider needing limitation, right? So, right now there's freedom. You can think of freedom of speech. Not many places. I think only the U.S. has freedom of speech. It's the only country in the world. I think. You can check me on that, but no other country has freedom of speech. Now, that still doesn't mean it's absolute freedom of speech. You're not allowed to incite violence in the US. So anything that would incite violence. So there's always a limitation to the freedom that could be part and parcel of our survival, right? So if you go out into the woods, you're free. You're free from paying bills. You're free from, you go live there, but you're not free from the other animals. You're not free from the bugs. You're not free if you cut yourself. You're not free to the possibility of infection. I mean, there's always some form of danger within freedom. It's the big question in freedom is, are you willing to risk, right? A wonderful thing that Camille Paglia had said, when women started the sexual revolution, it wasn't what it became. What it was, I want the freedom to choose, and I want the freedom to say, I'm responsible for whether I get graped or not, right? So that's what they wanted. But now it's become, you cannot grape me or essay me in any way. So you won't be, the world gets to have that limitation placed on them for your freedom. Yeah, ridiculous, right? So you can see that there's always some form of limitation, but it's going to be dependent on the individual and what we want in our world to say, well, I want freedom, but obviously to have that idea that you're not going to incite violence, you're going to have laws, etc. Okay, that's a big deal here, but I think it's really important because it's how our brain functions. So, or how we actually condition our brain, how our ancestry conditions our brain. We can condition our brain with the idea, like, why was I conditioned to want freedom? Is it because my name is freedom? That is actually my name, Eleftheria. Did that condition me? The 400 years of Turkish enslavement and imprisonment of the Greeks, is that inside me? And the phrase freedom or death, and that's my name, Eleftheria, or death. That's huge. Did that do something in my brain? All right, highly likely that's a possibility. But the thing that we want to look at is, I still need to be responsible for all of it, whether I put it there or not. And this is basically, Solzhenitsyn, who said that he was going to be responsible for everything that was going on in the gulags in Russia. He said, I've got to be responsible. I need to be responsible for everything. Everything is caused by me. And in doing so, he ended up knocking down the Iron Curtain, right? He wrote his book, it came out, and that broke down the Iron Curtain. Before that, everybody thought Russia was wonderful and fantastic, and nobody knew about the gulags. But he took that responsibility. Jordan Peterson's another person that I resonate with, because he says, you know, be responsible, get up, make your bed, you know, take care of yourself, do the things you need to do, and your life is going to get better. Take responsibility. Responsibility has been something, I've looked at all my life. I've got to be responsible, especially, it dawned on me when I was in 1975. I was 15 years old, and I was trying to support my mother, shift my mother, help my mother. And all of a sudden it dawned on me that I need to stop doing that. I need to stop being my mother's therapist, and I need to look at myself and take responsibility for my reactions to her, for my issues. And That's when I knew responsibility was pretty much everything. Gets you out of victim mode. Because before that, it was like, oh, she's the one making me feel this way. If only she would understand what she's saying. And all of a sudden I went, what the heck am I doing? She can say whatever she wants to say. I'm the one who's having trouble. She's okay with it. She thinks she's just fine. She's like 100%. She's great. I'm the one with the problem. And I was like, she's right. I am the one with the problem. I definitely have the problem. I'm the one who's triggered. And that's how I took my life in my hands and started to shift things. Now there we go. Life in my hands, start to shift things. How are we doing that? Now remember, everything I'm saying here is to help your brain flip all different belief systems that you have. They're going to be moving all over your brain. You're going to go, I disagree with this, I agree with that, blah, blah, blah. Whatever you're doing doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is that the neuroplasticity and circulation and tensegrity within those neurons and what's being fed out there and how those belief systems get to shift around and question yourself. You can question me all you want. I don't really, if you have a good question, I'd love to explore it. But if you don't have a good one, I've heard a lot of the questions, especially that, what do you think about this? What do you care about what I think? Like, all you wanted to do is experience these consciousnesses, and it should help you be versatile. Because don't forget the uh, possible permutations of all of the different consciousnesses that come out of my mouth and how they're going to impact every little detail in your brain. Especially, what if you, uh, if your brain is being impacted and you're more and more neuroplastic with all your movements. So you exercise, you do Feldenkrais, you do all kinds of different things. You keep your brain alive. You're probably going to have a way better reaction to the work that we do energetically and with consciousness than you're going to have with someone who's more sedentary, who's not really moving the body and not really engaging in life and sticking to their same opinion. Okay, and it's not about being right. What did I was listening to someone? I forget who it was. It's Thomas Sowell who said, uh, "People will forgive you if you're wrong, but they'll never forgive you if you were right." And I thought, oh my God, that's so powerful, right? When you're right, that's the worst. So, when I'm doing this, you're going to might find things that are right. You might find things that are wrong, but you're going to much prefer that I'm wrong about everything. Think about that. Think about you're going to prefer that I'm wrong about everything. I don't care either whether right or wrong, because none of this is right or wrong. It's just what's going on. And I'm focusing, what's the focus here? Neuroplasticity, helping the brain function better, helping the blood circulate, helping you get on with your life, live responsibly. Two, we all came to the same conclusion here. To do what? Why would you even bother doing this? Well, life is rough. It's hard. We can't just sit around and say life is supposed to be something relaxing. Can't be. Like I said, you can't just go live out in the forest and expect that life is going to give you a pass. No. But if I can use my brain to the optimum and be able to resolve situations that I'm in and be able to get out of them to make my life better. And yeah, it's going to require some hard work, but no matter what, we're going to have hard work. Even sitting in your self pitying bubble where you cry, I find those people suffer a lot stronger, more strongly. And that really addresses the idea that you don't escape your karma. You just don't. You don't escape when you've got the angel and the devil on your shoulder, and one of them's telling you, don't do that, and the other one's telling you, do it, do it, do it, right? If the devil's telling you to do it, and you're going to end up, in some place that's not going to work out for you, right? And this is besides IQ, right? I mean, it's really terrible if somebody's born, when you're born with a lower IQ, you might not know the consequences of your actions. That's really terrible, but there are ways in which all of us can help solve that problem. It's not solved yet. We don't know what to do with people who have 80 IQ or under, from what I understand. We just don't know what to do with those people. They can't even fold a loose leaf to get it into an envelope. They have to be shown and shown and shown. It doesn't even um, they can't even compute it. So, that's our part of our job is to help those people. Even energetically doing this, can we support through this brain work that we're doing, the neuroplasticity, to even get that person to be able to remember from week to week how to fold that piece of paper. So, problem solving is where we want to go. Why would we want to problem solve? Well, to get ourselves out of danger. We want to get ourselves out of danger. We don't want to be in danger, right? Somebody called me today with a problem. We had a nice long talk about it to figure out how to come to certain conclusions about that problem. It's really important to do those things. And sometimes stress about those things is well deserved. We don't want to just relax. If I've got a problem, I want the stress in my body to indicate you need to sit down and work at this. I don't want to be stressed while I'm working on it. That's not good. But the stress will guide me to, okay, you know what, just look at it, right? So if you've ever sat in your house and said, I'm not going to pay my bills, and you watch the bills piling up, what happens? It just gets worse. It gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And finally you're sitting there, oh, let's fix all the bills, let's take care of it, and your lights go out. That's not a good thing to do. You want to be taking care of things. That's responsibility. And then the next thing is, I'm responsible for it all. Oh, everything, including what I see in my world that is my issue. So somebody mentioned in group, what do you think about, I didn't quite answer this, but what do you think about when you start seeing that they're seeing people triggered? So this person is doing a lot of work with triggers. We do a lot of work with that. And she's noticing that she sees more people that are triggered. Well, it's also saying that the work that you are doing to reduce your own triggers is helping you see where they are, but also noticing that you're not triggered in relationship to that. And you're also helping heal the world because you're not engaging in the trigger. You're not going to a polarized opposite, right? Sometimes people are triggered and then right away it's like, well, let's take a side. Oh yes, right, you're right, they're wrong. No, you're being neutral and you're bringing that energy into the mix. All right, so that's a lot of stuff today for your brain to shift. We're doing blood flow, we're doing protection of the vessels, we're also looking at hippocampus for memory, and getting that hippocampus to start remembering what are the shifts going on, where was I stuck, where have I been stuck? Where you might even notice after this, oh, look, there are several places I'm stuck and I've ignored it. I need to go look at it. Let's see. Let's try that out now after we've looked at different ideas. All right, everyone, have a wonderful week. That's quite the session, but I definitely feel a clarity coming in. So thank you all for being there, being here. And yeah, see you next week. Give me some love, like, share, subscribe, and let's see where we go from here. Bye, everyone. Have a good one.